In the year 117 AD, an emperor died. Not on a battlefield, not in his palace, not even in Rome. He died in a place you've never heard of, in a way that shocked the ancient world. His name was Trajan, and he was supposed to be invincible. He had conquered Dacia, crushed the Parthians, and expanded the Roman Empire to its greatest size in history. Coins called him Optimus Princeps, the best of emperors. The Senate declared him greater than Alexander the Great. But in the end, he couldn't even walk. He couldn't write his own name. And he died believing, truly believing, that someone had poisoned him. This is the story of how Rome's golden age ended. Not with a battle, not with a betrayal, but with a 63-year-old man, paralyzed and drowning in his own body, watching his greatest victories crumble before his eyes. Welcome to the death of Trajan. Let me take you back, way back, to September of 117 AD. Picture this, a small harbor town on the southern coast of modern-day Turkey. The heat is unbearable, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, even in the shade. The Mediterranean sun beats down on limestone walls that have stood for centuries. This is Selinus, a place so unimportant that most Romans couldn't find it on a map. And yet, this is where the most powerful man in the world has come to die. Marcus Ulpius Traianus, Trajan, had ruled Rome for 19 years. 19 years of conquest, building, and expansion. Under him, the empire stretched from Scotland to the Persian Gulf, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Caspian Sea. He was the first emperor born outside Italy, hailing from Italica in Spain. A soldier's soldier, a man who ate with his troops, slept in their tents, and led cavalry charges personally. The Senate loved him, the army worshipped him, the people of Rome adored him. And now, he was finished. For 3 years, Trajan had been away from Rome. 3 years fighting a war that was supposed to be his masterpiece, the final solution to Rome's eastern problem, the conquest of Parthia. It had all gone so wrong. Let's rewind to 113 AD. Trajan was in his mid-50s now, still fit, still hungry, still convinced that Rome's destiny was unlimited expansion. The Parthian Empire, Rome's great rival in the East, had been a thorn in Rome's side for centuries. They controlled the Silk Road trade routes, they harbored Rome's enemies, and they had humiliated Roman armies before. Trajan decided no more. In 114, he annexed Armenia, made it a Roman province. The Parthians protested. Trajan didn't care. In 115, he pushed south into northern Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, captured city after city. The Parthian king, Osroes, couldn't stop him. By 116 AD, Trajan had done something no Roman commander had ever done. He sailed down the Tigris River, captured the Parthian capital of Ctesiphon, and marched all the way to the Persian Gulf. He stood on the shore and watched ships sail toward India. Legend says he wept, like Alexander, because there were no more worlds to conquer. But here's what the coins and the monuments don't tell you. Trajan had overreached badly. While he was playing Alexander in the desert, everything was falling apart behind him. Jewish communities across the eastern Mediterranean, Egypt, Cyrene, Cyprus, Mesopotamia, rose in massive revolt. The violence was catastrophic. In Cyrene alone, 220,000 Greeks were reportedly massacred. In Cyprus, Jews and Greeks slaughtered each other until the island was devastated. Trajan had to divert half his army just to suppress these rebellions. The war he thought he'd won, it was consuming him. And then there was Hatra. Hatra was a desert fortress city in northern Mesopotamia, not particularly important strategically, but Trajan wanted it. He laid siege to it in the summer of 117 AD, in the heat that could kill a healthy man in hours. He failed. He tried again and failed again. The defenses held, his men suffered in the brutal sun, and somewhere in that furnace, historians believe Trajan's body began to break down. Heat stroke, dehydration, or perhaps just 3 years of campaigning at age 63 finally catching up with him. Whatever happened at Hatra, Trajan left the siege a changed man, weakened, damaged, and facing an empire in revolt.
The ancient historian Cassius Dio gives us the most detailed account of what happened next, and it's horrifying. Trajan began suffering from what Dio calls dropsy, severe edema, fluid retention. His body swelled, but worse than that, he experienced partial paralysis. Dio writes that the blood, which descends every year into the lower parts of the body, was in his case checked in its flow. In modern terms, we might recognize this as a stroke, possibly multiple strokes. His circulation was failing, his limbs wouldn't respond. He may have been partially paralyzed on one side. Imagine this man, this soldier who had ridden at the head of cavalry charges, who had climbed mountains and crossed rivers with his men, now unable to lift his own sword, unable to mount a horse, watching his body betray him day by day. And there was something else, something that speaks to the paranoia of absolute power. Trajan became convinced he was being poisoned. Now, to be clear, the symptoms Dio describes are classic for stroke and heart failure. There's no evidence of poison. But in Trajan's mind, someone was killing him. Perhaps someone close, perhaps even someone in his own household. This is what power does to you. When you're at the top, everyone becomes a suspect. Every illness becomes an assassination attempt. By early summer 1117 AD, Trajan knew he was dying. He made the decision to return to Rome, to die at home if he could make it. He traveled from Antioch, modern Antakya in Turkey, by ship. The sea journey was supposed to be easier than overland travel, gentler on his failing body. It wasn't. Within 2 or 3 days at sea, his condition became critical. The ship was somewhere off the coast of Cilicia, southern Turkey, when they realized he wouldn't survive another day on the water. They put in at the nearest harbor, Selinus. It was August 8th, or perhaps August 9th, the sources differ. The heat was suffocating. The town was small, provincial, utterly unimportant. And here, in this forgotten place, the ruler of the Mediterranean world took his final breaths. But Trajan wasn't done yet. Even dying, he understood that succession was everything. The empire needed a new emperor immediately, before news of his death could trigger chaos. On his deathbed, Trajan formally adopted his cousin, Hadrian, as his heir. Hadrian was a competent military commander, well respected, about 41 years old. The adoption made him emperor the moment Trajan died. But here's where it gets complicated. The official letter of adoption, it wasn't signed by Trajan. It was signed by his wife, the Empress Plotina. Now maybe Trajan was too weak to hold a pen. Maybe Plotina was protecting the transition of power. But rumors started immediately. Had the will been forged? Had Trajan actually chosen someone else? Was Hadrian a usurper? We'll never know for certain, But the whispers began before Trajan's body was even cold. The Golden Age didn't really end with Trajan, of course. Hadrian would prove to be a great emperor in his own way. The 5 good emperors continued for another 60 years. But something shifted in August of 117 AD. The empire reached its physical limits. The dream of endless expansion died on that beach in Selinus, along with the man who had pushed harder than any Roman before him. Trajan taught Rome a lesson that every empire eventually learns. There is always a frontier too far. There is always a campaign that breaks even the strongest commander. There is always an end, even for the best of emperors. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more stories of how history's greatest figures faced their final moments, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And let me know in the comments, do you think Trajan was a success or a failure? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember that history isn't just dates and battles. It's human beings in all their glory and all their tragedy, trying to leave something behind before the end.